Welcome, this is Marjolein Robertson, presenting to you at the Shetland Times Podcast, and this week is all about Screenplay, and I'm joined by Cara McDiarmid, Screenplay Festival's volunteer coordinator. Hi Cara.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, how are you getting on?
Good, really good. This week has been absolutely brilliant. We've had so many people in watching the films, everybody's loved everything, and it's just been a really fantastic week so far.
So for anyone new to Screenplay, could you please summarise what Screenplay is?
So it is 10 days of films from across the world. We have films, we've got several different strands. So we have films that are look north. We have some fur and feathers films this year, which is great. We've got some fantastic kids films, and they're screened all through the week at Marilla, and we also have several outreach events as well.
I love the Look North films, because Look North is other Scandinavian films, and we've also had Canadian films.
So this year we actually had first-time filmmakers showing their films on the big screen, which was absolutely fantastic. So there were two from Scotland and one was from Canada, which was fantastic. And then we also had a Charlottetown Exchange. So there's a film festival in Prince Edward Island in Canada, and they've sent their homemade films to us, and we're sending some of our homemade films, so films made in Shetland by Shetlanders, to Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island, which is going to be brilliant.
Oh, and homemade for me, and I think for a lot of folk, is a personal highlight, because homemade, for the listeners at home who don't know, it's a chance for Shetlanders to make films under 4 minutes length and have them played in the big screen in the cinema. It's always sold out, but it's also, the thing I love most about homemade is it actually inspires people not just to watch films, but actually get behind the camera and write, direct and edit their own films.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. I mean, this year we have 27 short films being shown, which is fantastic. And it's brilliant how it's built up as well, because we've always had a homemade evening at Screenplay for the last 11 years. But the first one was just with the young filmmaking group Madrim. But since then it's grown so much, and every year we get new filmmakers, which is amazing, and people coming back, and you can really see people improve across the years as well, which is amazing.
I also think because the curators for the film festival are Mark Kermode, obviously a famous film critic in Britain, very well respected, and Ruth Williams, who is a professor of film. So there's also that want in Screenplay to really impress them. Like, it's such a great chance to have two people with such a great knowledge of film watching your homemade film.
Oh yeah, I mean, people really get so excited about the fact that, I mean, Mark Kermode's such a huge name, and Ruth Williams is just incredibly knowledgeable, so having both of them actually viewing your films and being able to get feedback from them is absolutely fantastic, and I do think it really adds value to the night as well.
And then this year there's been a huge extra level of educational screenings. Can you tell us about some of that?
Yes, so this year we've had such a good week. We've had schools from all over Shetland coming in to Screenplay, bust in from all over the Isles. I think we did have Isles like Fula. Did we have Fetlar?
Yeah, Fula and Fetlar.
Yeah, brilliant. So we had it from everywhere. It's been great. Every day from 10 a.m. we've had a full cinema screen in Screen 1 of kids watching films, and then afterwards we've had a workshop run by Liz Musser, who is the film tutor here for the NC film course, and she's been running these brilliant workshops with like 150 kids in the auditorium, and we've all just had a really nice time.
And is it right that every film the schools have seen have actually been foreign language films?
Yes, that's right. Mostly. Is that right? One didn't have any dialogue. I don't know if that counts.
What is that?
It's Minuscule, which is a no dialogue 90-minute film, and it's basically it's called Minuscule in the Valley of the Lost Ants, and it's about ants and a ladybird, and so they don't make any noise, they just make lots of squeaking. So, but every other film has been subtitled, which is amazing, because you would think that maybe some of the schools would be put off, or some of the kids would be put off by having to read subtitles, but most of the time they come out and haven't even realised they were reading by the end of it. They just got so sucked into the film, which is great.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also the film festival isn't just in Mariel, it's also branching out across Shetland. I think it's done that every year, hasn't it?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of outreach and different things in different parts of Shetland, which is really fun. We've had schools visits, so we were up in Bray, we're up in Midyell, we're out in Whalza, I believe, and then we've done public screenings there as well. And our launch event was in Hillswick, which was amazing. So that was the Highlands Islands Film Guild were showing archive footage on 16mm projectors, which is amazing. We had to get them down from the attic and dust them off.
Oh,
that was great.
That's good. So how would you feel this festival has been going so far? We're into the final weekend now.
It's been really good. I'm so tired, but But it's been amazing. All the audiences seem really happy with the films that are on this year. All the kids have had a great time at the education screenings. All the guests have been absolutely lovely. We had a brilliant Q&A with George MacKay last night after Pride, which was a brilliant film, and the audience were just so receptive to it. So, and this weekend's shaping up to be amazing as well. So
great. And there's still 2 days of film festival if you're tuning on to this on the Saturday morning when it's coming online. So keep an eye out for that. But thank you for talking to us, Cara.
Thank you.
And listeners, this is not where the podcast ends, because now we're going to go and talk to some of the guests of the festival, including the curators. So, on to the next interview. So now I'm joined by Hope Dickson Leach, who's just directed her first feature-length film. Hello, Hope.
Hello.
Can you please give the listeners just a bit of a background to yourself?
Yes, I am a writer and director. I live in Edinburgh, and I went to film school in New York. I was born and grew up in Hong Kong, so I like to travel. And this feature was made, we shot in 2015 in Somerset, and that was after making a series of short films which did quite well, and then I kind of took about 7 years before I made my first feature.
Can you tell us a small bit about the feature film, The Levelling?
Yeah, The Levelling is the story of a young woman called Clover who comes home to her parents, her family dairy farm, after she's found out that her brother has died, and she wants to know why and how he's died, and but she hasn't been home for years because she and her father have had a big falling out. So in lots of ways it's a reconciliation story, but it's sort of told through this investigation into her trying to figure out why her brother took his own life.
And you say you write and direct. Did you also write The Levelling?
I did,
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Yeah.
What was the background behind it? Do you have a story you wanted to tell, or was it just something you're exploring?
I was kind of working on this idea of a family, a sort of families that don't talk very much about things that are important to us, which I know is quite a universal theme, but it feels also specifically quite British. And so I was kind of working on this family story, and when I was developing it, the floods in Somerset in 2014 happened, and I went down after that, and I, having seen a lot of photos and been inspired, I went down and I met with some farmers and just felt like this was a really great place to set this story, and just in that period after the floods, when everybody's lives were kind of had been, you know, very, in some cases destroyed, but very much kind of affected by this really traumatic event. It just felt like a really important story to tell, but also something that was a really good way of illustrating what life outside big cities can be like, and the sort of different priorities and tensions that exist when you're kind of not in a city. I
think that'd be really interesting here in Shetland as well, because we are such a rural, land-based.
Absolutely. I mean, when I arrived yesterday, I was kind of, because I've travelled a lot with the film, and very often I go to places, and you know, when we got to Rotterdam and I got off the plane, I was on a train and it was completely flat, which is like the levels. But when I got off here, obviously it's not completely flat, but you can sort of see the horizon everywhere, and there's something like that in the levels as well. This idea of just your relationship with the land and how important that is actually, and I think people who don't live, you know, in the country don't really understand.
Another thing I was going to ask you, because you were saying earlier on you made a lot of short films. Was it 10 years ago you enlisted somebody to watch? Yeah, it's really exciting. And a lot of Shetlanders, a big night for us in the festival is the homemade night. So there's a lot of people in Shetland who've been making 4-minute and under films, and there's been people progressing to 15-minute long films. What advice would you have on people who've made that from your own experiences from making that transition from a short film to a feature-length film? Do you have advice or lessons you've learned along the way?
Oh, I've just learned so much. I think the best way to learn to be a filmmaker is just to make films. So I think, you know, just doing it is so important, because you'll not only learn how to do it, but you'll also learn what kind of films you want to make. Because I think, you know, a lot of us, we watch films and we think, oh, I want to make those films. But actually when we start making them, we're kind of like, no, I'm quite good at this, and this is what I seem to be drawn to. So that's really important. I think the difference between very short films and longer films is the financing, essentially. And so it's a lot about how you create those relationships to get the financing. What are the opportunities that are really going to open doors for you and make the industry take you seriously? Because you're asking people to suddenly give you, you know, £500,000, £1 million, £2 million, as opposed to kind of, you know, £1,000 for your short or whatever if you're lucky. So it's a very different thing, and one of the things about that is when you're making short work, you have a great deal of ownership over it. You can really be in control. Whereas when you're making something longer, there are a lot of people who want to shape the film and want it to be a certain way for their own reasons. And as the director, your job is really to have a vision and to get everybody on board with your vision and sort of convince them and resist their urge to kind of panic and pull it and to turn it into something else. So that is hard, and that's why you need to keep making films, because you need to be certain of your authority around, your creative skills, but also the fact that people can trust you and they should.
And because that was your first feature-length film, and there's Mark Kermode's Film of the Week, you said?
Yes, amazing.
So do you have plans in motion or a story idea for future projects at all? Sorry.
No, it's good. I'm
no
like,
rest.
no, I can take a few years off. No, I mean, it's taken me so long to get to this point. I'm diving into it. I had some scripts that I was already developing for this one, and I've added to that. I've got a couple more projects that I'm developing. It's very nice because people have liked the film, so producers have approached me with projects, and
nice.
And so I'm developing a lot of films now, and it's just kind of about which one gets the funding first. So
wow,
that's the kind of position I'm in. I'm writing a lot at the moment, and then I'm working with a screenwriter on something else, so I'm not writing, which is lovely. And it just feels really nice to find more collaborators and think about new projects.
And how have you enjoyed your time in Shetland so far and Screenplay Festival?
I just love it. I was just saying, I think I have to see if I can put an argument to come and be filmmaker in residence. I love it here. It's gorgeous. I mean, I've been to some islands before, having lived in Scotland for so long, but I have never been here, and it's a really special place, and I think this festival is brilliant. I love the children's programming. I brought my children with me.
Oh, nice.
And so they're in watching films. They're exploring the beaches, they're, pretending to be Vikings. So it's like a real delight to have such a sort of wonderful experience at a festival and not just be all films,
It's a delight to have you. Thank you so much for bringing the Levelling Up, and you've got your Q&A on Sunday night. Tonight? Saturday night? Yes, so it is.
Friday night?
My gosh, it's been one busy month. I'll keep that in. But yeah, thank you, and I hope, all the best for your future endeavours, and come back to Shetland when you bring them to Shetland when they're finished.
Thank you, I would love to. I will be back.
Thank you. Now I'm joined by Phil Scraton. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a professor in the School of Law at Queen's University, Belfast, and I'm here because of the film Hillsborough. I've researched Hillsborough more or less since the day the disaster happened on the 15th of April 1989.
And that's now a documentary. A documentary, was it about the disaster, that was released in 2014? Is that correct?
It was first released in 2014, but it wasn't allowed to be shown. It's called Hillsborough.
Wow.
It's made by Dan Gordon, and it wasn't allowed to be shown because it was sub judice, which means that you can't show a film while the case is live, and it was at the time of the inquests. So it was shortlisted for an Emmy in the United States. It won an Astra in Australia, but it couldn't be shown in Europe. And when the Hillsborough inquest verdicts came in 2016, we shot a new ending to it, which included the inquest. So the version that we're going to be seeing at the Shetland Film Festival is 2016.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't realise that. So just think about the film. How did you get involved? As you said, you have been researching Hillsborough since incident. How did you get involved with the actual film of Hillsborough?
Well, just very briefly, my background has always been in deaths in controversial circumstances, including deaths in custody. And when Hillsborough happened in 1989, I set up the Hillsborough Project because I was concerned that what we were going to get was an official version of events and not the reality. Mm-hmm. And of course that proved to be the case, so that we had inquest verdicts that were accidental death, appeals were made and failed, all of that happened, and that went on all the way through the 1990s. We get to the late 1990s and I write the book Hillsborough the Truth in order to put the record straight. Then we have what I call the fallow decade. Even though my book had made all the revelations that had been failed in the inquest, including the fact that the police had reviewed and altered all their statements prior to the inquiries, which was the most dramatic finding, nothing happened. It was serialised in the Sunday Mirror. It was covered by all the newspapers except obviously the Sun, but nothing happened for 10 years. And so it was only in 2009 at the 20th anniversary when Andy Burnham, who was Minister of State for Culture, said he was going to order a new inquiry into all of the documents. I told him he couldn't do that because it's a 30-year rule, access rule on documents. But the Labour government changed that and they brought it forward.
Okay.
And what happened was that then we had the Hillsborough Independent Panel. Sat for 2 years. I headed the research, 400-page report, 153 findings, and completely exonerated the fans.
Wow.
That was really massive. And the consequence was earth-shattering because the Lord Chief Justice, he quashed the inquest verdicts, ordered new inquests, full investigation into the police behaviour by the Independent Police Complaints Commission, full criminal investigation. All that was set up within 6 months. And then we had new inquests, which ran till 2016, longest inquest in legal history. And the finding was that the fans had died unlawfully. And there were 25 comprehensive criticisms of the police. Where the film comes in is the film traces all of the background to that, because obviously the film had been finished after the panel's report, but before the inquest started. Of course, we shot a new ending to accommodate the verdicts, but the film goes through chapter and verse, and Dan Gordon, the director, found some remarkable material. We found a lot of good material in the Hillsborough Independent Panel, but he found a mass of really, really incredible material, and he fitted it together, some reenactment. I have to say that the guy who plays me in the show doesn't look a bit like me, but that's by the by. That's a bone of contention, of course. But the film was groundbreaking. It was absolutely groundbreaking, and it wasn't allowed to be shown until immediately after the inquest verdicts were returned.
So this is an amazing chance to see the film at this festival.
It is an amazing chance because it'll probably be put sub judice again after next week.
Really?
Because the prosecutions will be starting.
Wow, thank you so much for bringing it.
Well,
here.
no, I'm thrilled to be invited because very few audiences have had a chance to see it. Even though it was shown on BBC Two, with 4 million people saw it that night. But it hasn't been reshown. And I think it is a remarkable film. I mean, you know, you don't win a BAFTA, you know, if the film isn't really excellent.
Yeah.
And that was a really emotional night for all of us who were involved with it. It also won major acclaim by so many other filmmakers.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
No,
I'm sorry that
great.
it has to cut short, but there's so many people being interviewed today. But it's great, and I hope you've been enjoying Shetland as well.
No, Shetland's been great, and I think that the twin issues of being able to bring your work and Dan's work here and to reach a wider audience that wouldn't normally see the film or hear the commentaries on it, and also to enjoy the beautiful place.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Come back again.
I will, don't worry.
So now I'm joined by George MacKay. Hello, George.
Hello.
And can you please introduce yourself to listeners at home?
My name's George, and I'm here at the Shetland Film Festival. It's with a film called Pride and a film called Sunshine on Lead.
Thank you. So how's your first 24 hours been? Because I think you've been in Shetland now for, just 25 hours now.
Yeah, I think bang on. It's been wicked. It's been lovely. I met you at the airport. We had a lovely drive to where I'm staying. And
I should tell the listeners, I've not said this yet, I'm a volunteer in Screenplay as well.
Oh, right. This is the sort of strange coincidence of meeting with Hyde.
I'm like, hey George, come with me.
It's been beautiful. Like it's stunning around here, and everyone's been really lovely, and it's a really good vibe at the festival. So I've seen some seals, so it's all good.
Yeah, you got some nature in already.
Got some nature in as well.
That's good. And there's a challenge set, so on Thursday night we watched Pride,
right,
the film you're in, from 2014, and at the Q&A with Mark Kermode afterwards he set you a challenge for perfecting a Shetland accent.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Well, it's
no pressure to do it now.
Yeah, it's a learning process. Yeah, I can do it now. I think if I need a bit of help with phonetics. I think if I can get some, if I keep listening, and also I think everyone's being very polite and speaking quite kind of sort of accessible
That's
dialect.
called knappen.
Knappen.
Knappen is when you speak more English,
Right.
so people will understand you.
Knappen, that's a good
Knappen,
word.
K-N-A-P.
Does it come from anywhere, that word?
Knap, from Shetland. That's a Shetland word.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so that is the challenge for you. Because if anyone hasn't seen George in films, it's amazing. Because I saw you in Captain Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was watching you in Captain Fantastic, you play an American. And it's only about a third of the way into the film, I was like, no way, that's him from Pride.
Oh,
He's
cool.
not American.
Oh,
Because your accent, very good at accents and Scottish accents.
Oh.
What else have you done?
I had to do a German for a film last year. I've done Manchester. Do Welsh.
Mancunian.
Mancunian. Yeah, a few ones. Sort of East London. Yeah.
And how would you feel? I know you've only been here for a day, but just from what you've seen of Screenplay so far, how does it compare to other film festivals? Because up in Shetland sometimes because sort of where we are, you know, we have our film festival, and I often wonder what other festivals are like.
Oh, it's lovely. It's just I think. Well, it depends because it's sort of there's different sort of the nature of different festivals. I guess some of the kind of bigger festivals, bigger just purely because they've been running for a long time. There's a bit more of a kind of there's a sort of bit more. Well, it's like there's like a self-awareness to them. They're like, we are this festival,
okay.
and that's grand because that's really special and exciting and a kind of different energy to be a part of. But everyone's just a bit more. I don't know. It's a bit more kind of lovely human contact, you know.
And I think if you're kind of like that in Shetland, you get ripped down really quickly.
Yeah.
If you think of yourself, and I shouldn't say the word pompous because it's not fair for other festivals, but if you think too big of yourself, people are like, what are you doing?
I think maybe other festivals, it's a kind of industry juggernaut, you know.
Yeah.
It's about like these people here in these films, and that's really exciting. And but at the same time, it's a bit more industrial.
Yeah.
You know, where this is just about people enjoying themselves, have a good time.
I also think because this is curated by Mark Kermode and Linda Ruth Williams, it really is the love of film.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got this really like, I don't know, they so love film that it's not about, well, it is also about who's the next. They appreciate people come out who are involved in films such as yourself, but it's really about just the love of cinema and appreciating good films.
Yeah.
I think it's quite nice.
Yeah, an appreciation of kind of stuff that they enjoy, because I guess other film festivals are kind of dictated by what's coming out as well, in terms of like everything's got to be new, so there's a sort of like everyone's chomping at the bit a wee bit.
Yeah, how was that for you last night? Because you watched a part of Pride, and that was, what year is this? Was that 3 years ago?
It was 3 years ago.
Is it funny seeing it screened still?
Yeah, it was really lovely actually. Like I usually wouldn't sort of watch something after maybe I sort of see it a few times when it's first coming out. And it's always really exciting to see the final product, to see everyone's work. But having not seen it for a few years, and I didn't necessarily intend to watch it like last night, so I kind of caught the last half hour, and it was really lovely because you get all the nostalgic memories of times when we were doing it as well, and few people who have become really sort of like really great friends in my life and who I see a lot of, and other people who I haven't seen barely at all since we finished it. And so it was just lovely to kind of see all those memories as well as the story in its own right.
And you've got more projects coming up in the pipeline.
Yeah, so there's there's a few stuff coming out.
Can you say it on this podcast, because this will be online forever?
Sorry.
In the nature of podcast, and this is being recorded. That's an alarm. Sorry, listeners. That is an alarm for us to go into another screening. Because I promised. Yeah, wasn't going to say that, but I promised I would get George into the next screening before it's late.
Aye.
So thank you for the time today, and I'll be talking to Mark and Linda next. So stay tuned, because this podcast is going to magically continue. So we're on to our final interview of the day, and it's a double whammy because we have Mark Kermode and Linda Ruth Williams. Hello.
Hello.
And could you please, just for the listeners at home, introduce yourselves and your background in film and screenplay?
Okay, well, I'm Linda Ruth Williams, and I'm a film academic. So today is my first day, my new job as Professor of Film at Exeter University, but I'm actually here in Shetland, which is fabulous. But I've also, I've done lots of stuff in encouraging filmmakers and, having to kind of think about opportunities for filmmakers and things like that. So I'm a bit more kind of connected, I would say, to the industry than many a film academic.
And I'm Mark Kermode, and I'm a film critic, and I'm one of the co-curators of Screenplay, which is now in its 11th year, although Linda and I first came here 13 years ago when Kathy Hubbard invited us to come and introduce a screening of The Wicker Man as part of Wordplay, and that was kind of how all of this began.
Yeah, I'm also a co-curator of Screenplay as well, that's why I'm here.
Yes,
Yeah.
both co-curators. So as you spoke about the fact you first came here 13 years ago, before Screenplay was even a festival, but now you've been to every Screenplay. How do you feel it's evolved over the years as a festival, and then perhaps in some ways a community?
Well, it used to be in the Garrison, which we loved. That was great. The move to Mariel has meant we can do a lot more, because we've got more spaces to not just cinema spaces, we've got more other spaces to just move around in and talk, and it's very it's really friendly. It was friendly from the start, but it's now got a national reputation as being friendly festival, which is great. So yeah.
When we started, it was basically a kind of a sort of slightly ramshackle assortment of films that we thought were interesting, and Kathy always had this sort of vision of things like Look North, things like programming children's films, particularly doing outreach stuff, doing educational stuff, because obviously, Kathy is based here in Shetland, this is where she lives, and we're the other end of the country, we're in Southampton. So our role initially was like just thinking about films that we liked and thinking about guests that we thought we might be able to sort of, encourage to come to Shetland. What's happened over the course of 10 years is, firstly, the festival has evolved, it's become much more embedded in the community, it's absolutely got very, very strong roots, so I think now it's got a much wider reach than it had before. From our point of view, our job of getting guests has become a lot easier because so many people have come now and had such a great time that it's easier. So for example, this year we have Bill Nighy. The reason we've got Bill Nighy is because Miranda Richardson and Stephen Woolley had come before, and Jim Broadbent had come.
So the bigger the list of brilliant people who've been here, the easier it is for other people to see that it's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And want to join that list.
And we have a guest lined up for next year, and I'm not going to name because I don't want to jinx it, but somebody we have been trying to get since year one of Shetland, and as of last week, we've been provisionally told that they're finally coming. So we're literally booking guests a year in advance, and I can't wait to tell you who it is.
My head is spinning trying to guess. But do you think as well that is thanks to the fact we have Bill Nighy this year?
Yeah, it's every person who comes and has a great time. They go back and they tell their friends. When Terence Davies first came up, that was a big deal because Terence Davies is a really important director, and he came because he liked the idea of it. And in fact, when he was here, he started working on Sunset Song.
He did, yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, Shetland is a wonderful place that everyone really, really wants to come to. So it's kind of not tricky to get people to come, especially when they've got kind of a reason to come. We're all busy in all our busy lives. If somebody gives you a reason to do something you already want to do, it's going to be easier to get off your bum and do it, isn't it? So yeah. And
also, I do think people like the fact that it does feel like a community festival. There's no air of competition. It's not a competitive thing. It's not a shouting match. It is, it's really open and friendly, and people do the Q&As and then they go and talk in the bar, or they go and dance in the bar. It does not feel like any other festival, and it's also very notable that this year we've had a lot more kind of press interest because
people coming from all over the place as well. We've got guests, travelling here and spending their holidays around the festival, which is,
which we never planned on initially. No. We never thought that you'd get people coming in for the festival. I mean, people like Alexander have been coming for ages, but it is notable that there are people who have come specially for the festival.
But I know that even if that grows, it will remain at its heart a festival for Shetland people.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question about that. But that's a good festival for anyone, really.
I think that makes it more exciting as well for Shetlanders, because then you've got people with different backgrounds in film and interest and levels coming to Shetland. And I mean, for Shetland as well, tourism is a huge part of our economy. Yeah. So any festival that brings more people in is great for our business and interest them, and again, try and entice them back again. Also, what's really exciting having both of yourselves here is that a huge part of Screenplay, especially for Shetlanders, is homemade, because it's your opportunity to make a short film and have it on the big screen. And I know I'm totally guilty of this, as if I have a film in, I look to see if you're laughing. So I wondered how you would compare homemade here to other festivals with Do other festivals have similar evenings of short, locally made films?
There's nothing similar.
No, there isn't. I mean, short films are, they're a classic way of beginning your career in film. So most filmmakers will have short films under their belt. And one of our wonderful guests this year, Hope Dickson Leach, she's got a great portfolio.
Really quickly, if you could just say in one sentence, where do you see Screenplay going in the next 10 years? Not a loaded question.
Shall I go first?
Yes.
I couldn't have imagined 10, 11 years ago that Screenplay would be where it is now. We were in the Garrison, we weren't in Mareel. We were a small and slightly sort of fledgling festival that was, still trying to explain itself to its guests. We are literally at the point now of turning people away. I don't mean audiences, I mean guests. So I can imagine if it's gone from there to here in 10 years, in another 10 years' time, you are literally going to be fighting off people who just want to come to the Shetland Screenplay Festival because it's so different to any other film festival they've been to.
Very cool.
And the best thing about it is, it is, as Linda said, it's primarily, first and foremost, for Shetland audiences. That's what it's there for.
Better than Cannes, Mark.
Oh, it's way better than Cannes. It's way better than Cannes. Cannes don't.
I'm really sorry because I'm going to have to stop it there and stop the whole podcast, but thank you so much
for speaking
today, and thank you for listening, and please tune in next week for another podcast.